You are no longer welcome here, Amelia. Pack your things and get out before security escorts you. That's what my twin brother Julian said to me in front of 200 guests at our family hotel's 40th anniversary gala. I stood there, frozen, under the crystal chandelier of the Rosewood Grand Ballroom, wearing the same navy blue dress our mother picked for me just 2 hours earlier. Behind Julian, projected on the screen, were fake security reports showing a data breach, one that supposedly traced back to my employee login. Whispers spread like wildfire across the room. Aunts, uncles, investors, even my parents turned to look at me like I was a stranger. I couldn't breathe. Let me rewind. My name is Amelia Carter, co-founder, scratch that, former co-founder of the Carter Hotel Group, a boutique luxury chain started by my grandfather. Julian and I were raised like heirs to a kingdom. We were taught the value of service, legacy, and loyalty. But I was the one who actually worked for it. While Julian was busy charming guests and giving interviews, I was in the back office building our proprietary booking system from scratch, one that helped triple our revenue in 3 years. We were supposed to be equals. That's what our parents always said. But deep down, I knew the board always saw Julian as the face of the company. And me? I was just the back-end brain. Replaceable, hidden, quiet. That night, I became the scapegoat for a fabricated scandal. According to the slides Julian prepared, conveniently timed for the public announcement, I had leaked data on our celebrity clientele, putting the company at risk of a lawsuit. It was a lie. A perfectly crafted lie. I tried to speak. This isn't true. I've never... But my father, ever the polished patriarch, raised his hand and said coldly, "Enough. The board has already voted. You've embarrassed this family enough tonight." The room erupted in flashes of camera phones and shocked gasps. I stared at Julian. He didn't even flinch. In fact, he smiled. A small, satisfied smirk. That's when I knew. He'd planned this. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes as I walked out. I didn't cry. Not yet. But I didn't leave the building immediately. Instead, I found my way to the rooftop terrace, our grandfather's favorite spot. That's when I heard the scrape of a chair and turned. My grandfather, Henry Carter, the founder himself, was sitting there with a glass of scotch, looking more furious than I'd ever seen him. He stood up, walked over, and handed me a key. "To my townhouse. Go there. Stay quiet. Don't contact anyone, not yet." I blinked. "Grandpa, you believe me?" He nodded slowly. "I may be old, but I'm not blind. That little bastard's been playing puppet master for a while, but he made a mistake tonight." "What mistake?" He leaned in close, voice low. "He thinks you're out, but you've always been the one who built this place from the inside out. You just haven't learned how to use that power." I gripped the key tighter, heart pounding. "What do I do now?" His eyes gleamed. "You disappear. You rebuild. You watch." I followed his instructions to the letter. The townhouse was quiet, cold, and filled with memories of summers past. I sat there that night and opened my laptop, pulling up the code from the Carter booking system. Something didn't add up. The timestamps on the breach didn't match the server logs. The data was accessed from an IP address that didn't belong to any of our staff, or me. I dove deeper, file by file, line by line. And then I found it. A hidden admin account created 6 days before the gala. One with Julian's handwriting all over it, code comments in his favorite phrasing, internal nicknames he always used. He didn't just frame me. He used my own system to do it. I stared at the screen, fists clenched. He wanted me erased. But what he didn't know was that I'd left behind something he couldn't erase, something hidden, something that was still mine. And I wasn't going to walk away quietly. Not this time. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the hardwood floor of my grandfather's townhouse, staring at the lines of code that were supposed to ruin me. But the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. Julian didn't just frame me. He used my own system, my own creation, and twisted it into a weapon against me. He thought he was smart. He thought he covered his tracks. But I knew that code like I knew my own handwriting. The way he named variables, the sloppy way he reused scripts from old projects. He had left a trail only I would notice. That's when the numbness began to fade. And the fury settled in. I wasn't angry just because he framed me. I was angry because I built everything. I created the software that now powered every reservation, every revenue report, every expansion pitch he gave to investors. And he had the audacity to say I was the threat? He couldn't write a single line of code without crashing the system, but he could smile into a camera. That was enough for the board. The next day, I tried to call my mother. God, I don't even know what I wanted. Maybe just to hear her say she believed me. She didn't answer. Instead, I got a call from the Carter Group's HR. They informed me that my email access had been permanently revoked, my pension frozen pending investigation, and my non-disclosure clause was now active. That was their way of saying, stay quiet, or we'll bury you. I hung up and threw the phone across the room. My entire life. Gone. My career, my reputation, the empire I helped build. Stripped away overnight because my brother couldn't stand sharing the spotlight, and everyone let him do it. That afternoon, I opened a drawer in the study and found an old envelope with my name on it. My grandfather's handwriting was unmistakable. Inside was a flash drive. No note, just that. I plugged it into my laptop with shaking hands. It contained one thing, a detailed audit of the Carter Group's international accounts, specifically flagged transactions from the Dubai expansion. Millions had been funneled into shell companies overseas, accounts that didn't match any supplier. But one name kept popping up, Marble Gate Holdings. I Googled it, a private shell firm, registered in the Caymans. Then I cross-referenced email threads from 6 months earlier, the ones I had archived off-network as a precaution. There it was. A scanned invoice with Julian's signature, sent to Marble Gate Holdings, labeled Consulting Fees, System Integration. He hadn't just framed me. He was robbing the company blind. My stomach twisted. And then it hit me. He was using my firing as a distraction, a scapegoat. If the system failed, blame Amelia. If Dubai flopped, blame Amelia. If the numbers didn't add up, well, she's gone, isn't she? I closed the laptop and stared out the window. It wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated erasure. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a restricted number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. Amelia? I froze. It was Lena Chen, our former lead developer. She'd quit 2 months before the gala under mysterious circumstances. How did you get this number? I asked cautiously. Your grandfather gave it to me. He said if anything ever happened, I'd know when to call. I swallowed hard. What's going on? Lena hesitated. Then she said 5 words that flipped everything upside down. Julian's trying to sell the system. What? To an outside investor, a tech firm in Singapore. He's rebranding it, stripping your name off everything, said you were a liability. The rage hit me like a wave. He wasn't just taking my career. He was stealing my legacy. But here's the part he didn't know. When I built that system, I embedded a failsafe, a self-triggering clause in the licensing code. If any unauthorized copy was made or transferred, it would deactivate core functions and notify the original creator, me. And now I had every reason to use it. When I hung up the call with Lena, I didn't breathe for a full minute. My fingers trembled against the laptop trackpad. He was really doing it. Julian wasn't just stealing credit. He was about to sell the entire system I built to a foreign investor. A system I'd poured 4 years of my life into. Line by line. Night after night. I stared at the screen. The code was still there, untouched in my offline backup. My fail-safe mechanism, a hidden line in the license management protocol, was dormant, like a sleeping weapon. One that would automatically disable the system and alert me the moment someone tried to replicate or export the software without my encrypted approval key. Julian had no idea it existed, because no one ever cared enough to look at the fine print, not when they thought the tech girl was just lucky to be in the room. I activated the monitoring protocol from my laptop. A series of encrypted scripts ran silently, pinging every Carter Group server still linked to my code. And just like that, a blip. An unauthorized export attempt. Logged in from the Dubai server. IP address matched. Timestamped. Traced. He was in the final stages of the transfer, and he thought I couldn't touch him. I sent Lena the activation key. When I give the word, run it, it'll trigger the failsafe across every node. She paused. Amelia, you sure? Dead sure. For the next 72 hours, I barely slept. Lena flew in from Seattle to meet me. We set up a secure war room in my grandfather's townhouse. Monitors lined the walls. We tracked every file movement, every network pulse. We even had eyes on the boardroom in Dubai. Julian had no idea that the main security camera feed had never been rerouted from the original server. We watched him pace the room in a $1,000 suit, sipping champagne like he'd already won. His voice echoed through the feed. By Monday, the Singapore firm will sign. We offload the entire system, rebrand it under Carter Technologies, and double our valuation overnight. I felt Lena stiffen beside me. He's using your name, she muttered. No, I said coldly. He's using our father's name. Mine's not even in the building anymore. I stared at the live data flow. Packets were being compressed. A transfer was scheduled for Sunday, 4 p.m. That was our window. I spent Saturday finalizing the legal backup, logs, proof of authorship, licensing documents, every update timestamped with my digital signature. I wasn't just going to shut him down. I was going to prove it was mine. Sunday came, 3:59 p.m. The transfer began. Now, I said. Lena hit the key. Across the network, nodes blinked red. Encryption protocols locked every process. The system shut down mid-transfer, terminating the connection and wiping any unauthorized copy in real time. At the same moment, an auto alert hit the Singapore firm's inbox, along with a detailed report titled, Unauthorized Technology Transfer, Legal Ownership, Amelia Carter. I leaned back, heart pounding. Then we switched to the Dubai camera feed. Julian was staring at the frozen laptop screen in confusion. His investors were beginning to murmur. One of them looked at their phone, then another. Then the shouting started. Where's the data? This system's been locked. Who the hell is Amelia Carter? Julian's smile faltered. Then his phone rang. He answered it on speaker, his voice tight. This is Carter. The man on the other end didn't bother with pleasantries. This deal's dead, and if you think we won't press charges for fraud, you're dumber than you look. Julian stood there, frozen, in front of a dozen furious investors. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came 30 seconds later, when Lena pulled up an alert from the U.S. Patent Office. The system we had just disabled wasn't just protected by copyright. It was registered, under my name, as a patented proprietary software system. 3 days earlier, my grandfather's final legal request had been processed, expediting the patent we filed together years ago but never finalized. Julian hadn't just violated licensing. He had broken federal law. Comment the number 1 if you want to see how Julian will pay for this. The morning of the Carter Group's emergency shareholder meeting, I stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized myself. 10 months ago, I was the disgraced twin, the security risk, the tech girl they erased with one press release. Today, I was about to take back everything they stole from me and burn the lies to the ground. I wore a tailored black suit with a steel gray blouse, sharp enough to cut through memory. Lena sat beside me in the car, clutching the leather-bound briefcase that held our final weapon, the patent certificate, the forged contracts, and the legal evidence of Julian's fraud. We pulled into the underground garage beneath the Carter Group headquarters. No cameras, no press. Everything had been done quietly, just the way the board liked it. The meeting was supposed to finalize the Dubai expansion plan. The one Julian had promised would revolutionize luxury hospitality. Instead, it would be his burial. We stepped into the private elevator that led to the 45th floor executive boardroom. My palms were cold, my heart steady. I had waited too long to let nerves interfere now. The elevator dinged, the doors opened, and the silence was glorious. Julian was already speaking when I entered, mid-sentence, confident, surrounded by executives nodding along like wind-up toys. He didn't see me at first, but my mother did, her face drained of color. My father blinked once, then again, slower, and then Julian turned. He froze, his mouth opened slightly. What are you doing here? I smiled. Don't stop on my account. I'd hate to interrupt another fake success story. The board members exchanged glances. Whispers spread like fire. Ms. Carter, one of them said cautiously. You were removed. Illegally, I corrected, placing the briefcase on the table. And everything I need to prove it is in here. Julian moved to intercept me, voice trembling. Security! No need, said a calm voice from the corner. Every head turned as Martin Blake, the Carter Group's corporate attorney, stepped forward. I reviewed the evidence Ms. Carter submitted last night. It's substantial. We are legally obligated to hear her out. Julian turned bright red. This is insane. She's trying to hijack. Funny, I said coldly. That's exactly what you did 10 months ago when you faked the breach report and forged my access logs. Gasps filled the room. My mother stood up, gripping the back of her chair. My father stared straight ahead, like he was already calculating what to do next. I took a slow breath and began to unpack the file. First, I displayed the system logs showing Julian's unauthorized access. Then, the Singapore investor's angry termination email. Then, the patent certificate, filed and approved under my name. The board's energy shifted. Confusion turned to alarm. Alarm turned to disbelief. And then came the final blow. Lena handed Martin the sealed envelope. Inside was a signed statement from 2 former IT managers, testifying that Julian ordered them to alter server records and delete backup logs. They had come forward after the shutdown in Dubai, because they thought I was gone, but I wasn't. I had never left. I looked at Julian. Your entire expansion strategy is based on stolen tech. Your investors are gone. Your name is dirt. And now, Martin cleared his throat. Under Section 4 of the company bylaws, executive misconduct involving intellectual property theft constitutes grounds for immediate termination and criminal referral. Julian stumbled backward, mouth opening and closing. Number you! You can't do this! You're just the developer. I'm the CEO. I built this company. That's when the elevator dinged again. Everyone turned, and my grandfather walked in. Alive. Not dead. Not buried. Very much alive. He walked to the head of the table, eyes fixed on Julian. You forged my signature on the resignation papers. Had I actually passed, this company would already be gone. But I saw the press release and decided to disappear, just long enough to see who would try to wear my crown. The room exploded in stunned silence. Julian looked like he'd been shot. My mother sat down hard. My father stared at the floor. And me? I just smiled. Julian didn't speak for nearly a full minute. He just stood there, pale, sweating, watching the man he thought he had buried, our grandfather, walk calmly to the head of the boardroom table like nothing had ever happened. Sit down, Grandpa said to him. Not loud, not angry, just cold, commanding. Julian obeyed, slowly. I faked my death, Grandpa said, addressing the room, because I knew someone in this company would make a move the second I couldn't stop them. I just didn't think it would be my own grandson. The silence in the room was suffocating. I gave you everything, Grandpa continued. Access, power, trust. And you sold it for applause and quick money. You sold out your sister, your team, and the legacy we built. Julian's lips trembled. I didn't know you were watching. That's exactly the problem, Grandpa snapped. You thought no one was watching, and now, it's time to face what that arrogance has cost you. He turned to the board. As majority shareholder and founder, I am exercising my right to remove Julian Carter from all leadership positions, effective immediately. His shares will be frozen pending investigation. His compensation packages are null. And as of this moment, he is barred from entering any Carter Group property. Gasps erupted across the room. No! Wait! Julian stood, voice cracking. You can't do this. This is my company now. No, I said quietly, rising to my feet. It was never yours. You were just keeping the seat warm until someone worthy took it back. He spun toward me, hatred in his eyes. You think you're better than me? Just because you wrote some code? No, I said, stepping closer. Because I built something that mattered. While you lied, cheated, and stole, I created. I solved problems. I earned respect. You built smoke and mirrors. I built a foundation. Lena placed a folder on the table. The investor lawsuits are already coming in, she added. Singapore's tech firm is filing for attempted fraud. The system was never yours to sell. And the IRS has already flagged the offshore accounts you used to launder your consulting fees, Grandpa added. Your mother and I hired a forensic accountant last month. The evidence is damning. My mother looked down. My father closed his eyes. Neither said a word. Julian's knees buckled, and he dropped into his chair like the air had been knocked out of him. No fight left. Just a broken, trembling mess of ego and failure. It should have felt like victory. But honestly, it felt like closure. We spent the next hour finalizing the transition. Grandpa reinstated me as CTO and appointed me interim CEO, with unanimous board approval. My team from Boston flew in the next week to begin full integration with Carter Group operations. We rebranded the Dubai project, cleaned house in the executive department, repaired relationships with clients who had almost walked away. It took 3 months to stabilize everything, 6 months to grow again, 1 year to surpass every performance record the company ever held. Julian, meanwhile, disappeared from the public eye. The lawsuits bankrupted him. The media shredded his reputation. And when the federal investigation confirmed the forged documents and illegal wire transfers, he accepted a deal. No prison time, but a lifetime industry ban. He tried to reach out once, sent a handwritten letter asking for forgiveness. I never read it. I had already moved on, because revenge wasn't about destroying him anymore. It was about proving that no matter how hard he tried to erase me, I was never going to vanish. Now I run the Carter Group with a quiet, steady hand. Our technology division, led by Lena, is leading the industry in innovation. Our family name, once nearly dragged through the mud, stands for something again. And every time I pass the framed patent certificate hanging outside my office, I smile, because I know exactly who I am now. I'm not the forgotten twin. I'm not the scapegoat. I'm not even just the CEO. I'm the one who stayed standing when everyone else tried to bury me. Comment the number 1 if you want more stories like this one, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the next twist you won't see coming.